There we go. Thank you for catching that.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this webinar is going to be just a basic refresher on the Healthy Utah Community designation. We're going to talk about the basics of how a community gets designated, how you stay designated, and then hopefully just answer a lot of the frequently asked questions that often come up. So with that, like I mentioned, I'm the program coordinator at Get Healthy Utah. So just a little bit of background. Get Healthy Utah is a nonprofit organization with the mission of partnering with state and local leaders to build thriving communities where physical activity, healthy eating, and mental well-being are a part of everyday life. So it was through a partnership with the league, with Utah League of Cities and Towns, that we created this designation, and we're the entity that helps to manage it. So just like I talked about a little bit earlier, we have a few basic goals with the webinar today. We're going to talk about how to get designated a Healthy Utah Community, how to get re-designated after the end of 3 years. We are also going to talk about the resources that we have available, and also answer any questions that you have. I do want to pause and say, just because answering questions is a big goal of today's webinar, please do feel free to ask your hand if you want to verbally ask your question, or you can just drop it in the chat and we'll try to answer questions as we go along. And please don't be shy about asking questions, because if you have a question, it's very likely that someone else is wondering the same exact thing. So let's start out though with a very quick intro on why health is important, why we care about building healthy communities. Because a lot of the times when we think about Utah, we think of it as being one of the healthiest states in the nation, which is very true, and that's fantastic, and you know that's something that we can be proud of as a state. But it's careful not to be lulled into kind of a false sense of security because of that standing. Just because Utah is on the same poor health trajectory as the rest of the nation. So you can see here, this is a graph of just obesity rates. The blue line at the top is obesity rates in the nation. The green line on the bottom is obesity rates in Utah. So you can see that we are on the exact same trajectory. In 1990, our obesity rate was 10%. In 2020, it jumped up to 30%, and it's expected by 2050 to reach 46%. So nearly half of all adults will struggle with obesity on the current trajectory that we're on. And this goes for Utah, right? One of our healthy states. So we should still consider health to be a really high priority and something that we should want to tackle collectively as a state. We know that in large part, this trend that we're seeing is because there's been a decrease in health behaviors. So when it comes to Utah specifically, only about 1 out of 10 adults eat enough fruits and vegetables, eat enough fruits and vegetables, and only about half get enough physical activity. But what's concerning is if you look at our pipeline and look at data for teens, the next generation, those rates are even lower. So you can see that only about 2 out of every 100 teens is eating enough vegetables, a little bit more fruit consumption, but still not great. And only a quarter of all teens are getting enough physical activity, which is concerning because usually your teenage years are your most active. So you can see here that that trajectory that we saw, this is kind of the phenomenon behind it that's fueling it. And we do know that where we live does have an impact on health behaviors and just on overall general well-being. This is a little map here where you can see the difference in life expectancies in 2 neighboring areas. So in downtown Salt Lake, the life expectancy is about 75 years, which lags behind the life expectancy on the East Bench of Salt Lake, which is 83 years. So, you know, there are a lot of factors that go behind that difference that we see, but we do see disparities in health by geographic region all across the state, just like that. And part of it is due to the differences that we have in access to opportunities to live a healthy lifestyle. So really our goal and the goal of communities is to make sure that every person has the opportunity and the resources that they need to live a healthy life. And so what that can look like is, you know, are there good sports programs available for kids to participate in? Are there safe biking and walking trails that the average family can enjoy? Is it possible to walk to work? And what kind of restaurants are there in the area? Is it just flooded with fast food restaurants, or are there fun opportunities to get fresh local produce? And so we have been seeing, thankfully, a big shift in perceptions and attitudes lately. We did a survey in 2020 asking cities if they felt like they play a role in health. And you can see by the answers here that about half of all city leaders said, yeah, I think we play a role in health. But the other half said, nope, that's not our responsibility. We don't impact health in any way, right? But fast forward 4 years, and after the creation of this designation and kind of the new shift in perspectives we've been seeing, and you can see that really increasing now to where a lot of city leaders are recognizing the impact that they have on health and are getting enthusiastic about addressing it. So you can see here in the 2024 survey that actually most respondents said yes, we do have an impact on health. And so that's kind of where the Healthy Utah Community designation comes into play. We know that this is something that city leaders are growing to care about. And so this designation is supposed to act as a helpful framework to help cities and towns that want to improve health in their local area. And this just provides a very simple step-by-step process that you can go through, not only to earn the recognition of being designated, but also to help you know where to start to improve conditions of health in your local area. So the program, we're happy to say, has been really successful so far. So the program was created in 2020, and in the past 5 years, we have had 60 communities be designated across the state, and about 90% of all communities do renew their designation after it expires after 3 years. So I think that goes to show that this has been helpful to communities and the communities do want to keep their designation current. We have also, as you can see from the list, been very careful to create a designation that just isn't for urban cities, along the Wasatch Front. But we've tried very hard to create a designation that works for all communities across the state, no matter how big or small. I think our smallest community that has been designated is Casharam, which has about 300 people. And then our biggest is those in the Salt Lake area, like West Valley, South Salt Lake, North Salt Lake, and so on. And so since the designation has been created, we're pretty excited to say that it has helped cities and towns implement a total of 571 health strategies across the state, which is fantastic. And you can see the breakdown there between active living strategies, healthy food strategies, and mental health strategies. And so let's talk now just about the designation, what it is, and how to earn it. So just as background, like I said, it was created in 2020 in partnership with the Utah League of Cities and Towns. It is a 3-year designation. The reason for that is we didn't want the designation just to be something that, your city gets once and you feel good about it, pat yourself on the back, and then kind of never think about health again. So the 3-year expiration on it just helps cities and towns to remain engaged in improving health and keep health at the forefront of their mind so that you're constantly thinking about, okay, are we on track to be redesignated? What do we need to do to continue improving health? We do have 2 application deadlines each year, a spring and a fall application deadline. So the spring deadline is March 1st, and if you apply by the spring deadline, then you will be designated at the Utah League of Cities and Towns Mid-Year Conference, which takes place in St. George. The fall deadline is August 1st, and if you apply by that deadline, then you'll be designated at the Utah League of Cities and Towns Fall Conference, which takes place in Salt Lake City. So if you want to attend the designation ceremony, if you will, sometimes it can be helpful to keep in mind if you want to be designated down in St. George or up in Salt Lake, and if that will impact, how many people from your city or town can attend. And so when you get awarded the designation, we do work with a videographer to go to your city or town to coordinate some interviews with your city leaders and to be part of an awards video that will be shown at the league conference to all of the mayors and city staff that are there. So you do get statewide recognition that way. We also give you a little trophy, a certificate. We advertise it in the news. We give you a self-promotional toolkit to help you understand what you can do to get the word out in your own local community and make the most of it. And then what's also a little bit exciting is that when funding is available, Get Healthy Utah tries to offer mini grants to cities and towns to provide funding to work on health improving initiatives. And so kind of the first step to qualify for those mini grants is to be a healthy Utah community. And so getting this designation can help open the doors to get some funding for your local initiatives. And so the reason that cities and towns like it is, like I said at the beginning, it does provide that helpful framework where you can kind of get an idea of where do I even start to improve health in my community. We also provide lots of resources to help you with different initiatives. You do get that statewide recognition. It's a great way, local residents often don't see all of the work that goes on behind the scenes to make their community a great place. And this is a very public facing thing that you can do to show your residents what you're doing to try to improve their well-being, right? So it's a great way to I guess show off to your residents, if you will. It also connects you with a lot of great learning network opportunities. I'll touch on those a little bit later, and like I said, those mini grants. So that's the designation in a nutshell. Let's talk about the process of actually getting designated. So if you feel like your community is ready to get started, what you're going to want to do is email us for a copy of the application. You can also go onto our website, and we do have a whole tab dedicated to how to get designated. And you can go there and peruse through all of the resources that we have. And it will say when you're ready for an application, email us. You can see our email down there, info@gethealthyutah.org, and we will send you a fillable copy of the application. It's about a 4 to 5 page Google document or a Word document that you can just work on at your own time. You can save your progress, work on it, over the course of, however long it takes, maybe a couple weeks, and then you will just email it back to us when it's complete. So when we say you need to submit your application by the March 1st or August 1st deadline, what we're meaning is you just need to email us the completed application. And so the steps you'll see when you get the application, there's 4 basic sections to getting applied. The first one is you need to submit a letter of commitment to health signed by your mayor. Next, you need to establish a community health coalition that meets together regularly. Next, you need to identify health strategies that are in place and completed in your community. And then fourth, you need to complete a 3-year community health plan. So I'm going to go through each of these steps and talk about them a little bit more in depth. So that first step is submitting a letter of commitment from your mayor. So the reason that we do this is we want to make sure that the mayor is aware that your community is getting designated, and just make sure that there is a commitment from city or town leadership to promote health. So this is very simple. We do offer a template that is linked inside of the application, so it's really easy. You can just click on it as you're working it through. And we just provide the basic language for that letter, and you just go through and customize it. Basically, just give us a brief summary of what you did to improve health in your community. So just kind of summarize the strategies that you did, just very, very simple, and just affirm that you are committed to improving health. And so it does need to be signed by the mayor. We do sometimes get asked if unincorporated communities can apply for this designation. The answer is yes, as long as you get our okay first. So if you are working with an unincorporated area or are from an unincorporated area, just shoot us an email and say something like, hey, Stansbury Park is interested in getting designated. Can we qualify? And we'll just verify with the Utah League of Cities and Towns that they're okay with that, and then we'll give you the green light to move forward. So in that case, it may not be the signature of the mayor per se, but the next best equivalent. And this letter, you can just put it on your own community's letterhead, and you'll email it to us as a separate attachment. So I'll just pause here really quickly and see if anyone has any questions about this letter of commitment. Yeah, doesn't seem like that. Seem like it. Okay, perfect. It is pretty simple, very straightforward. Okay, the next thing, this is sometimes what takes a little bit more work on a city or town's part. And that's making sure that you have a health coalition. Now, I did mention earlier that we have worked really hard to make sure that this designation works both for tiny towns and big cities. So our threshold for what counts as a coalition is fairly low in the sense that we want it to work for tiny communities. So this coalition needs to consist of at least 4 individuals, which we do encourage coming from different sectors, right? So maybe city leadership, maybe local healthcare, maybe local schools, maybe a resident, right? So at least 4 diverse individuals, and the coalition needs to meet together at least quarterly. Now, what we do recommend and what is best practice is meeting together monthly and having more than 4 people, right? And a lot of communities, once they establish a coalition, it is usually a lot bigger and does meet pretty often. But really, what we expect is that this coalition is the group of people who oversee earning and maintaining the designation. So, meaning that they should make sure that your strategies to improve active living, mental health, and access to healthy food should be moving forward in your community. And so I do get a lot of questions here on what can count as a coalition, right? If you already have a coalition, that's great. You can go ahead and use an already existing one. Like, for instance, West Valley already had a Healthy West Valley committee that had been organized for a lot of years, and this step was really easy for them because they just used that health coalition. If you're in a tiny, tiny town where this is pretty difficult for you, in that instance, we are willing to look at accepting a county level coalition if that makes more sense for your community. So if you have any questions about the details of a coalition, feel free to just shoot me an email or give me a call just to ask as you're filling out the application. And we're happy to talk with you about what can count and what might not count. So any questions here about the coalition? Okay, all right, great. We'll just keep moving forward then. So when it comes to the actual application part, this is what it's going to look like. It's very basic. All we ask you to do is list the name of the coalition, the date that the coalition was organized. If you don't know that for sure, that's okay. Just give us the best approximate year and the frequency that the coalition meets. Give us a list of your coalition members, and then we'll ask for comments about the coalition where we'll just give you an opportunity to explain what your coalition count for this section of the application. Okay, so that's the first 2 things. So letter of commitment from the mayor and a health coalition. After that, the next section is going to be asking about health strategies that have been implemented in your community. So we have 3 categories that we ask about, and that's active living, mental health, and access to healthy food. And the number of strategies that need to be implemented depends on the population size of your community. So, for a small community with a population of less than 10,000, you just have to have 1 strategy in each of these categories for a total of 3. For mid sized communities with a population up to 65,000, you have to have 2 strategies in each category for a total of 6. And large communities with a population over 65,000 need to have 3 strategies in each category for a total of 9. And so when I say health strategies, what does that mean, right? How do you know if it counts as a health strategy? So we have 3 different places, if you will, that your strategies can come from. First of all, on our website and on our application, we do have a list of recommended strategies that looks like this, where these are just some really good best practices, like, for instance, conducting a messaging campaign to promote physical activity in your community, offering free or low cost community sports programs for both adults and children, and so on, right? So if you do a 5K in your community, this is an area where it can count. The next thing is that we have a menu of services where we've partnered with a bunch of people across the state to get their programs on a spreadsheet where if you implement any of these programs in your community, that can count as a strategy. So for instance, USU Extension offers a lot of really cool nutrition and cooking classes. And if those classes are available in your community, then that can count as a strategy. So we do have this menu of services linked on our website and within the application itself. And we do have a menu of services for each of the 3 categories. And then the last thing is that you can come up with a strategy of your own. If you're doing something that's really unique that improves physical activity or mental health, or access to healthy food, but it's not on either of those things, you can go ahead and tell us about it. We would love to learn about it. So for instance, Smithfield recently created just a community produce box where people can drop off extra produce from their garden and pick it up for free. And so that level of specific strategy wasn't mentioned on those lists, but that's absolutely something that we would accept. So that's where your strategies can come from. So all that we ask on the application is the category, meaning active living or access to healthy food or mental health, that you write here. The strategy, do just a brief description of it, right? Like we have a community garden, and then provide us a decent summary of the efforts. Like for instance, if you created a new trail, this is where you would tell us which trail it was. Did you add 1 mile, 2 miles to it, and just give us enough detail that we can clearly picture what was done in your community. And you can see here just a few examples of strategies that have been implemented around the state. There's a community garden for refugees in Mill Creek. There's this really cool tricycle gang for the senior community in North Logan, 5Ks, marathons, and so on. So if you get designated, we will ask you for pictures of your strategies that we can include in the awards video and on our website. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that you probably would, if you're applying, you probably want to be getting pictures as well of what you have done. So that's it. Any questions about health strategies? Okay, perfect. All right, so then the last step is coming up with a 3-year health plan. So just like I described, this designation is valid for 3 years. And at the end of those 3 years, you need to reapply, or else the designation goes void. So this health plan is just to help you get and stay on track to be redesignated. So we ask you to do just 2 things. It's actually fairly simple. One, we ask you to look at health data for your community, look at the health statistics, maybe identify areas of need, and then use that information to inform what strategies you should be working on for the next 3 years, and then you choose what those strategies will be. And then if you fulfill your 3-year health plan, that's what's going to trigger you qualifying for redesignation. So I'll go over this a little bit more in depth. So when we ask you to look at health data for your community within the application, we link to a few data sources that you're welcome to use, such as IBIS, I'll talk about that in a second, the Healthy Places Index, and USU Wellbeing Survey. So the first 2 are free and just website sources that anyone is welcome to use. So IBIS stands for the Public Health Indicator-Based Information System. If you click on the link within the application, it will take you to this website where you can do a community snapshot report. So you'll just come here and either choose local health district and choose a general region where your city or town is in, or you can click on Utah small area to maybe pull up your city or town, and you'll just run the report, and then it'll pull up a bunch of health statistics for you. So very simple, very helpful. The next data source is the Healthy Places Index. Again, we have the website for this linked in the application. When you go here, it will pull up this really cool interactive map, where on the right-hand side, you can click on tracks and come down to cities and towns. Then it'll show you city and town level health data, and you can just click on your own community, and it'll pull up a bunch of stats. The last one is completely optional. We just like to include it because it can be a really helpful resource. But Utah State University does, and has been doing for a few years now, a well-being survey where they partner with cities and towns to just ask residents about the state of health in the community. So up to this point, it has been a free survey, but in order for them to continue, they have started asking for a little bit of money to help them keep going. So they are planning to do a 2026 survey that will cost $1,500 for the basic survey. And then if you want to add any specific questions that you've come up with on your own, that's an additional $500. So if this is something that you're interested in doing, I'll just encourage you to go to their website, poke around, learn more about it. And they have information to contact Dr. Flint, who is in charge of it, if your community would like to do the survey. Again, this isn't a prerequisite to get designated. This is just a helpful resource in case you're interested. And then once you look at all of those data sources, you'll answer these basic essay questions, where basically we're just asking you, what are the 3 greatest health needs for your community and why? And then we're asking which groups are experiencing the worst health outcomes in your community and why. And then based on all of that information, you'll choose what strategies you want to work on for the next 3 years. Again, the number of strategies you need to implement over 3 years depends on the size of your community. So if you're a small community, you only need to implement one strategy over 3 years. So for instance, maybe you're going to create a community garden because you don't already have one yet. For a mid-sized community, you have to do 2 strategies. And then a large community, you have to do 3. These strategies can come from any one of those categories that we have, like active living, physical activity. It's just based entirely on the needs that you see in your community. And so if you have any questions? Great. So the next thing we want to touch on is redesignation, right? How do you get redesignated at the end of that 3-year period? Well, the answer is it's very simple. It's almost the exact same process as getting designated in the first place. So what you'll do is we have a special reapplication uh, a redesignation application that's just slightly different that we will send a copy to you. Now, I keep track of all the communities that are coming up for redesignation, and 6 months in advance, I will reach out to your community. I'll CC the mayor and whoever filled out the application originally and send you a copy of this application and remind you that you're coming up for redesignation. If you want a copy of the application earlier, you can also reach out to us at any time. But again, the requirements are exactly the same. So one, you'll have to resubmit a new letter of commitment from your mayor because perhaps you have a change in mayor. If not, we still want to know that that commitment is still there. You need to tell us that your health coalition is continuing to meet and provide some updated information about it. You'll also tell us about the health strategies that you implemented for your community health plan, right? So this is where you go back and say, hey, we did do the community garden that we said we would. Here's a few details about it. And then the last step is just doing another community health plan to set you up for the next 3-year cycle because you'll have to reapply again in 3 years. So again, you'll look at the data and choose the strategies that you want to do. So again, very similar, very simple health strategies. There's just a few less, right? Just 1, 2, or 3, depending on if you're small, medium, and large, and it's just reporting back on your health plan. And so if you get redesignated, you'll still get a new trophy, you'll get a new certificate. We'll highlight you on our website and in the news, and we'll do a call out to you in the awards video. We don't have the space to do, interviews with all of the redesignated communities like we do for the first designees, but we'll still do our very best to make sure that you're highlighted and recognized for the work that you're doing, and you'll stay qualified for the mini grants that we have to offer. And so that's about it for redesignation. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. Just a frequently asked question I get. Actually, let me read this in the chat. So clarification, for a small community, is it one strategy from any health strategy or one from each? Great question. It's just one total. So when you first get designated, it's going to be one in each for a total of 3. But when you get redesignated, it's just one strategy from any category. So you'll have the most amount of health strategies that you need to implement when you first get designated. And then afterwards, the amount goes down for you just to maintain that designation, if that makes sense. So thank you. Good question. And I am sometimes asked what happens if your designation lapses. The designation, of course, goes void. You're taken off of our website, things like that, right? No longer qualify for mini grants. But you're welcome to reapply at any time without penalty. So we have had one community that their designation was lapsed for an entire year, and then they reapplied and they got redesignated, which was great. Again, there's no penalty. You just go through the same exact process as before. All right, and so I'm going to talk a little bit just for the last few minutes about the resources that we have available to help you with this whole designation process and just improving health in your community in general. So the first resource that I want to talk about that sometimes gets overlooked but is a fantastic resource is your local health departments. When you first ask to get designated, I will send you this little flyer that talks about how your local health departments can help you. And I will provide you with a contact for your local health department in case you want to get in contact with them. We do have a contact list. We've worked with all of the health departments to the point where they're familiar with the designation, and they have designated a point of contact in each health department to help with the designation across the state, which is great. So the three ways that local health departments can help is one, with coalitions. It's pretty likely that they might already have some coalitions established that can count towards your community, that can check this box for you. If not, it can be really helpful to get a local health department representative on your local coalition. So they can either join your coalition or point you to an already existing one, which is fantastic. Next, a lot of health departments offer programs and resources like maybe nutrition classes that can count as strategies. So talk to them about what they're already doing, maybe help them expand into your community if you're interested. And then the last thing is that they can help you with your health plan. They may actually have more local data if they've done community health assessments that they can share with you. So you can ask them for data, and maybe you can ask for their input on what they feel like would be really helpful future strategies. So again, we'll provide a contact with you if you want to take advantage of any help that they have to offer. The next thing is that we have listed a bunch of resources and help on our website. So for this part, I'm actually going to go to our website and kind of walk you through what resources we have available so you feel confident accessing them on your own later. So our website is gethealthyutah.org. We have this Healthy Utah Community tab where, again, you can go here to see all of our resources for applying for the designation. You can see what communities are already designated. You can go back and rewatch old awards videos. Really fun tab here. And then what I want to point out is our Learning Network and our Student Support tab. So we're here on the Learning Network website, where first of all, if you aren't already signed up, you might want to sign up for our Healthy Utah Community newsletter. We send out a newsletter once every other month that just highlights what communities around the state have been doing to improve health, to get designated. We also include like funding opportunities, like any grants that we're aware of that are ongoing, and just provide some best practices and as much support as we can. So that's our newsletter. Next, we have a couple of toolkits, some flyers that this just provides, again, some more ideas, visual ideas on what you can do for health strategies in your community. And this talks about, these are a bunch of flyers that talk about the role of different sectors in improving health in the community. So if you want to know better how to partner with your local healthcare people in your local area, you can click on this flyer and learn a little bit more. And then again, the menu of services that we talked about before, also linked in the application. And then these are kind of the hidden gems that I wish more people knew about and utilized. So let's say, for instance, that you decided you wanted to work on a mental health strategy. If you click here on this tab, this will pull up all of the recommended strategies on our recommended strategy list. And then it provides resources for doing each one underneath. So let's say you wanted to destigmatize mental illness by doing a community campaign or event. Well, this is pretty great because here we have a whole planning guide from, I think it said SAMHSA, on how to do a mental health campaign. You can see an event planning checklist so to help you planning your event, tips for planning a wellness event, and so on. Or if you want to increase awareness of local mental health hotlines or local resources, here's the websites to a bunch of different things like Hope for Utah Hope Squad, United Way, Safe Utah Crisis Chat, the 988 Lifeline, and so on. So if you need help with any strategy, this is just where we've tried to list a bunch of resources for you. Also, if you are interested in starting a coalition, this is just like a bunch of information on how to start, right? Like, what should we do during our first meeting? Well, maybe you could develop your mission, right? This talks about recruiting potential members and so on. So I'd encourage you also to look at some of these resources. These are really great information, like how to start a coalition. Just really, really great websites. So that's it for all of the resources that we have associated with the strategies. And then all of the webinars like this that we do post here on our website. So if you want to watch a panel of people from around the state talking about how they built their health coalition, you can come here. If you're interested specifically in how your city can support mental health, we have a webinar for that. This is a whole webinar that goes more in depth on the redesignation process if you want some more information, and just so on. So lots of great resources. We're always updating it, so feel free to check back frequently. And then, let's see, where did my presentation go? Here we go. Okay. And so that's it. So again, all of the resources that we have available are on our website. If you are interested in having me come down and do a presentation for your city council on the designation or for your health coalition, I'm also very happy to come in person and do a similar presentation as this. And so that's it. That's all of the content that I had to cover. So I know I stopped for questions along the way, but does anyone have any questions now?
Morgan, I do.
Yeah.
Just wondering, like, so if you decide to implement like a class or something for a year, does it matter how many times that is going to be offered throughout the year?
Oh, that's a good question. We kind of don't necessarily, if you will, like police the health strategies down to that level, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It what it should be, if you're counting it as a health strategy, is kind of an ongoing resource for your community, is kind of more what we would expect. Um, so for instance, like offering low cost sports in your community, we kind of assume that that's an ongoing thing, right? Not like a one time thing. So we would kind of hope that the same is true for classes.
Okay. And then another question. So say you wanted to start a community garden and you did it
Mhm.
the first year and it did not go over. Is there how you can change your strategy mid the 3 years, or do you have to keep that strategy?
Yeah, no, great question. So, if a strategy kind of goes under, if you will, that's not going to revoke your designation at all. Um, I think we still want to award communities for the initial effort, because starting a community garden in the first place is a lot of work. So we feel comfortable with that still counting towards the designation. So really what we would expect is just, are you continuing to move forward in other ways to improve health in your community? Like, are you still fulfilling your health plan? So if a strategy is in place and working at the time that you submit your application, it can count. And if later, we understand things change, that won't count against you, if that answers the question.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah, of course. And then it looks like we have a question in the chat. Our coalition support from the community has waned, meaning the residents we had on the coalition no longer wish to participate. We do have the local and county partnerships still meeting with us quarterly. Will this affect our qualification for this on the reapplication? That's a good thing. Or a good question. We do have a place similar on the other application where you can describe things like that about your coalition. And I think as long as you're still meeting the most basic thresholds, where there's at least 4 people who are meeting together at least quarterly, it can still count, and you can just describe that in the comments below. If it gets to the point where you're no longer meeting those basic thresholds, like you aren't meeting quarterly anymore, you don't have at least 4 people, that's when it would affect your ability to get redesignated. If that answers the question well. Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Okay, well, I might add, it's very common for me, as cities or towns are working through their application, for people to just email me or call me for 5 minutes, just saying, "Hey, I don't know if this will count as a strategy. Can you just clarify for me if it will?" So please feel welcome to reach out at any time. This is my job, so you really won't be bugging me. There's no such thing as a dumb or too small question. And then also, I might add too is I think your application, our board of directors at Get Healthy Utah review each of the applications and then just vote to approve them. So I sometimes tell people that that can be helpful to keep in mind when you're filling out the application, is just to make sure that you're filling it out adequately, that our board of directors is getting a clear picture of what's going on in your community. So if ever you have questions about like, oh, how much detail should I include? Just ask yourself, if I were voting on this application, how many details, how much detail would be helpful for me? So with that, just wanted to say thank you very much for joining us for this webinar. Our emails are in the chat. You can see my personal email is morgan@gethealthyutah.org. So please feel free to reach out at any time. And thank you so much for taking a bit of your afternoon to learn about the designation. We appreciate it.